All right, he goes on then, and he wants to now zero in on the philosophical presuppositions that science has to adhere to, or at least hold to, in order to accomplish the things that it accomplishes. And so he entitles this section, "The Conclusions of Science Can Only Be as Strong as Its Presuppositions," right? The assumptions that the scientists are making. And so he says that science cannot be practiced in thin air, right? It's based on many assumptions, each with its challenges. And so the business of stating and criticizing and defending its assumptions, notice, is not scientific, but philosophical, right? And so what he's going to do in the rest of this chapter is to show that there are some assumptions and there's disagreement on these assumptions. And so on either side, you have to make philosophical arguments about these assumptions of science. And again, that is not doing science, that's doing philosophy. Right, right. What he's getting at.
Yeah, science is not made ex nihilo in there. Just as the structure of a building cannot be more reliable than the foundation on which it rests, so the conclusions of science, the structure, cannot be more certain than the presuppositions of science, its foundations. You may have heard a time or two where we've made just that claim about pretty much everything else, and so we bristle at the whiskers for the underlying presuppositions of anything. But strong scientism rules out these presuppositions altogether, because the nature of the presuppositions is philosophical, just as defending the presuppositions is also philosophical and not a scientific matter. Again, we covered that, it's self-defeating. In this way, then, scientism ends up losing the foundations of science itself, jeopardizing the entire edifice. One could almost say that it builds its house on sand and not on a foundation of, let me pull out like a rock or what have you.
Yeah, go figure. So the idea here is, let's say that we have the building of scientific knowledge claims, right? And then underneath that, maybe under the ground, are pillars that are holding up the building. And what he's getting at here is that the claim of scientism disregards, in fact, calls those pillars false, right? Because they're not scientific, they are philosophical. And if that's the case, then that seems somewhat absurd. So you're saying the foundation that holds up the building of science is false. If that's the case, what does that do to the structure? It collapses, right? If the foundation, if what's holding up the pillars are false, then of course you don't have a good structure as well. And that's what he's getting at.